Guys, Ali Duzette here, and I have a lot of tabs open on my computer right now, so I need to close them. And how I need to close them is by making this video, which I've been thinking about making for quite a while, and I just haven't sat down and done it. So here we are. We're going to see if we can zip on through. Okay, this is what I wanted to take a look at. On July 4th of 2023, a judge ruled that the current presidential administration could no longer communicate with social media platforms and demand certain forms of censorship. Fine, censorship. Okay. So a judge said that was no longer allowed to happen. Which is interesting. And so this is obviously something that I care about because my own work has been censored in the past, and I'm sure many of you guys have had stuff on social media platforms that has been censored. So I wanted to run the chart of that first injunction. Now, this is the interesting thing. Let me pull up one of the many tabs that I need to close. Okay, let me find it. Okay, so that is from July the 5th. Okay, sorry, I have so many tabs and they all open and close kind of slowly, which is why I need to close them. Okay, on September the 6th, okay, this is the headline. An order limiting Biden administration contacts with social networks is mostly overturned. Court. White House likely violated the First Amendment, but the injunction went too far. So the first injunction said the Biden administration can no longer talk to social media platforms and make them censor things. Then there was the second injunction in September that said, it kind of got overturned, but not totally, but a little bit. And then we had another update on, oh my gosh, where is that article? I need to just close them all. Here we go. Okay, earlier this week. So today is the 25th. And so less than a week ago on October 20th, last Friday, this is the, it says SCOTUS blocks order that said Biden administration can't coerce social media firms. Supreme Court issues stay and will hear the case on U.S. contacts with social networks. Okay, it says the Supreme Court has blocked an injunction that would prevent the Biden administration from pressuring social media firms to take down content. Justices agreed to hear the Biden administration's appeal of the injunction, which will be stayed until the High Court issues a ruling that could either uphold the injunction or block it permanently. Okay, so the decision to grant the stay and to hear the administration's appeal was issued in an order on Friday. The court previously issued a temporary stay while it considered whether to hear the case, so the injunction has not been enforced. Okay, so this is what I wanted to take a look at. Now, this is really interesting because every year on your birthday, you get a new chart called a solar return chart, and it kind of acts as like a forecast for your year. And this is, in my opinion, also true for nations. And so it's really interesting that this first injunction took place on America's birthday, America's solar return on July 4th. What an interesting tone to set for the year. This legal battle between the judicial system, the judicial branch and the executive branch, okay, of America, right? And so I pulled up the chart of the first injunction. Let's share it. Come on. Okay, so this is the chart for the year, and I've looked at this chart before in an earlier video because we have this Virgo rising. This was in my video about if we could expect lockdowns this year due to COVID. So that's, much earlier on my channel, but anyway, I just wanted to kind of take a look at it because this is really interesting stuff. Now, one thing I want to draw our attention to is that this year, on America's birthday, we had Pluto exact the moon at 29 degrees, okay? That is a pretty tight conjunction. I mean, like, they are truly exact, Pluto and the moon. And so Pluto deals with death and rebirth. It trims away what is dead so that new growth can come. And the moon deals with, in a mundane chart, in a chart for a nation, it deals with the people and the feelings of the people, the constituency, right? As opposed to like the feelings of the king or like the monarch or something. The moon deals with the people. So what does it mean that this is going to be, we're going to have Pluto exact the moon at the time of this ruling? I'm not really sure, but to me, as I'm just talking it out, Pluto deals with transformation, and Pluto can kind of go either way. Pluto can be deeply oppressive, and Pluto can be the instigator that inspires people to finally throw off their oppression. Okay, so when we see the moon exact Pluto here, I'm thinking that the people may in general feel suppressed in some ways. And I think we can see that in a lot of areas. Let's go back to the chart, because it's taking place in Capricorn at 29 degrees of Capricorn, which deals with the economy and money. And I think no matter where you fall in the political spectrum or anything like that, I think everybody is definitely feeling the purse strings tightening, right? Like everyone is feeling a death and rebirth in terms of the economy, right? And that's one thing that is going to indicate, right? And right here at the very, oh my gosh, right on the cusp of the 5th house, it's going to be affecting our creativity for sure, which is interesting in the context of things like social media. So let's go ahead and take a look up here at the 11th house, which deals with social media. We've got Venus and Mars conjunct, love and war. That energy, whenever you have Venus and Mars really close together, I always say like it deals with love and war. All is fair in love and war. Do you fight for what you love or do you fight with what you love? And so that's an interesting energy to have very prominently in a zone relating to social media on a chart. I always view Pallas as a big social media player in a chart as well. So that's interesting that it creates what's called a stellium, these 3 astrological bodies that are so tight together. They're all going to be influencing each other in Leo, which is the bright and shiny, like, look at me kind of energy. Interesting that we're going to have this injunction about social media and social media boundaries and who is allowed to say what. With all of this in the 11th house, which governs social media. This is Black Moon Lilith, who deals with boundaries. And she is also in this 11th house with all of this. And so what is that telling me? Just a lot of energy around what are the boundaries that are going to be set over how we interact with large groups of people. That's really what the 11th house is all about, interacting with large groups of people. Now, this Black Moon Lilith at this time was in retrograde. And so that can be kind of like the negative side of how those boundaries are enforced. And so interesting timing with this injunction. I'm also noticing, look at this, guys, that Black Moon Lilith retrograde in Leo is going to be impacting our understanding of our boundaries over how we're able to express ourselves when we're trying to communicate with large groups of people. And it's going to possibly feel like we're moving backwards in some ways. That's what a retrograde can indicate. And it's not exactly opposite, but it is opposite. It's opposite enough to that Moon Pluto conjunction. And it's creating a grand cross with these horseshoe guys, which are the nodes of destiny. So what is that telling me? It's telling me that it's kind of our national destiny right now to really have to have a spiritual reckoning, a spiritual death and rebirth in terms of money and the economy, but also in terms of how we are expressing ourselves, especially on the internet. Especially when we're expressing ourselves to large groups of people. And look, that Pluto is retrograde. This Black Moon Lilith is retrograde. That's just telling me that it may feel like things get worse before they get better. So that is a really interesting energy. Now, the final thing I want to take a quick look at here is this yod, this green triangle here. On the one hand, we have Pluto and the moon, big death and rebirth in the economy, and how we feel about our government and how we feel about because Capricorn governs the government. Over here, we have Neptune in Pisces, which is going to add a little flavor of delusion and confusion and not really being sure exactly what's going on. In the 7th house, it's going to have us kind of questioning, like, who is on our team? Who is the good guy here? And that can really be a confusing energy. And the apex of this whole thing is that stellium with Pallas, Mars, and Venus. So a big focus on conflict, love and war. Who are we fighting for? Who are we fighting with? And how are we doing it in a way that shines the light on ourselves in the context of social media? Basically, I don't know, Leo in the 11th house is like, oh my gosh, this is such a social media type of thing. And I always view Pallas as linked to social media. I just view her with like a net, and she's like got the net, and she's like working with the internet, you know. I kind of view her as the one who thinks around the box, thinks outside of the box, thinks around the corner, very strategic thinker. I just feel like she's kind of like the conspiracy theorist of the chart, you know, and where she is thinking ahead, and she may be sharing her strategy on the internet. I don't know. Okay, but when you have this kind of triangle, what you want to do is look at if there's something in the opposition of the triangle. So here we actually have something. It is Hygeia in Aquarius retrograde, which means that if we are feeling stress about social media situations and government situations and financial situations with all of this exact year, because this is not exactly America's solar return chart, but it is close to it. I just ran it for 12 o'clock because I figured that was probably around the time that the injunction came out, and 12 noon aligns the chart nicely with the midheaven. But this bisection is going to invite us all to focus on taking care of ourselves. Hygeia is all about self-care. It's about brushing your teeth. It's about waking up every day and going to bed, you know, at a reasonable hour at night, washing your face, moisturizing, taking a shower. Like, that is Hygeia. And the call is like, when we're feeling so stressed, when we're not sure what's going on, when our world of social media is getting confusing and we're not sure what to believe, when we're feeling like we need a rebirth, it's time to just literally like go wash your face, go wash your hands, go take a shower, go brush your teeth, go take care of yourself. And that is going to be really helpful. Okay, let's take a look at the other chart that I've got going on here. So that is the first injunction, which is also linked to America's birthday, and kind of like giving us the flavor of the whole year. Whatever happens on your birthday, they say that it impacts your whole year. It kind of acts as like a little foreshadow of your whole year. So you want to have a really great birthday and have a really great year. You know, that's, I don't know, take it with a grain of salt. Okay. So this is the chart that I ran for when the injunction was blocked by the Supreme Court. So again, as a reminder, on July 4th, a judge came out and said, no, the president cannot try and force social media to delete posts he disagrees with. Then the Supreme Court said, well, but he can for now. And that just happened on October 20th. They said, yes, no, the president can totally influence social media companies. And, you know, I'm like oversimplifying it, but that's kind of the gist. Okay. So what is going on here? The first thing that we obviously have to note is that this is taking place during the eclipse portal, which, you know, I'm talking about a lot, but the eclipse portal started on October 14th, and on October 21st, we had the halfway point of this eclipse cycle. And so it's really interesting that this injunction blocking took place almost at the exact midpoint of this eclipse cycle. Again, during eclipses, during eclipse portals like this one, the 2 weeks in between the eclipses are like big times of upheaval for everyone, for all of the people and for the nations. And this is a good example of how this is showing up on a national on the national scene. Of course, like if you're not kind of like paying attention to this stuff, you wouldn't even notice it, right? But still pretty interesting. So one of the things that I think is really interesting about this chart. I ran it for 11 o'clock a.m. because I don't know. I used to live in DC. I feel like I remember that usually the Supreme Court released stuff like this at 11 a.m. I'm like, am I crazy? I think that's true. I used to go to the Supreme Court to go like be there for when they released hearings, but it has been a while. So this is the chart that I ran it for though. And in this exact chart, I did not do this on purpose. I just thought 11 a.m. is when they release stuff. We have the sun at 26 degrees of Libra and Mercury at 27 degrees of Libra. And this was going to be true all day long, having the sun almost exact Mercury. So what does that mean? It means that on a national level, there's going to be a big focus on communication. And I think that was definitely true in the case of this exact Supreme Court action. All eyes were turned on to communication. Mercury governs communication. And then Libra really deals with what is fair and what is not fair. And it also deals with issues of friendships and like loyalty and alliances. And so this is a really interesting energy to come up for the Supreme Court to say, well, it wasn't fair for the first judge to, tell the president to stop censoring people, so that's like a very interesting expression of this energy here. Okay. I mean, at least to me, it's like super interesting. Okay. So Pluto is coming, man, at 27 degrees and 54 minutes. Here it is. Oh man, so close to where it was for during America's natality. America's natal Pluto is at 27 degrees and 33 minutes. And so Pluto's not going to be hitting that again, the Pluto return. I've done a lot of work on the Pluto return on this channel. So you can like search Ali Doucette Pluto return, find all my videos about that. But it is really interesting that Pluto's flirting real hard with America's natal Pluto right here. And it's squaring the sun. So that is really interesting. Now, when we talk about the Pluto return, and again, I've done a lot of videos about the Pluto return. It took place in 2022. And historically speaking, a lot of Pluto returns for other nations have led to societal disruption and sometimes societal collapse or restructuring within about 12 years of the Pluto return. Pluto is a slow-moving planet. It moves on a 244-year cycle. So 12 years is long as a person living through that time, but it's really short in the grand scheme of things. So we're 1 year into the 12 years of societal restructuring. So we have a ways to go to see how this is going to play out. But to me, it's interesting that the sun was squaring that Pluto at 27 degrees of Capricorn. I just thought, interesting. Squares are going to be tension. This tension between the overall sense of where America is at and that Plutonian rebirth. It's time for a reset. That is what Pluto is aching for. Pluto wants a reset. And so this exact conjunction took place while this square was happening. So very, very interesting. Okay, let's go back. Okay. And in this exact chart also, which I kind of ran, I kind of ran it randomly. I just assumed they release things at 11, but this has Black Moon Lilith at 26 degrees, which is exact the midheaven, which in Virgo. And that's going to tell me that there's going to be a big focus on, again, boundaries. How are our boundaries expressed, and how Virgo is very discriminating and very logical, and it's interested in healing. I would say that Virgo's interest in healing is really because Virgo wants to be right. That's probably a little apocryphal of me, but I mean, and it's not just that. Virgo cares about healing, but one of the essences of Virgo is this discriminatory gaze. I don't mean that in the sense of like judging people based on their skin or something like that, but just Virgo energy looks at a bunch of things and evaluates all of it and ranks all of it and is just considering all of it. And it wants to heal in part because that is like the right thing to do. That's the best way to live, is to live in a healed state, right? So Virgo's the one like, what is the best? What is not the best? Well, the best is to be healthy. So I guess I will go for that, right? And so there's going to be this focus on what are the appropriate boundaries that are the best, right? To have Black Moon Lilith next to the midheaven in this mundane chart. Again, mundane comes from like the Latin mundo, meaning the world. It doesn't mean boring in the astrological sense. Okay, anything else here? I'm kind of just riffing on this live. I've had these charts up for weeks and I haven't like sat down and really looked at them. This is interesting. Virgo is making a grand trine with the moon, and Jupiter a grand trine Earth. So that's a big flow between our sense, like our general feelings of the nation, like the national sentiment is having this easy flow with that Venus in Virgo, which is going to be oriented to receiving things. Virgo is not a big fighter. It's really a receiver, and it functions the best a lot of times when it is in a flow state. And then Jupiter is a massive expander, and Jupiter in Taurus would be a massive expander of attention on the economy and on money. So that is an interesting energy here. Yeah. Let me see. Oh my gosh, where's my little clicker? Come here. One thing to note about grand trines is that their trines have a reputation among astrologers for kind of like luck or ease. And I just don't know that that's always true. Like when you would see a moon Venus Jupiter trine, a grand trine, you would say like, oh, that's like luck and money. But I'm not sure that that is always true. I just feel like what it really indicates is an ease of flow in between the energies. But if the energies are not healed, having an ease of flow between them is not a positive thing, right? So like maybe you know somebody who like never can get their finances together and like their finances are a mess. I'm sorry, but their Venus may be a mess and like their Jupiter may be a mess. When we look at the planets as kind of like archetypal representations of certain energies that on a personal level are colored by our own belief systems and our own traumas and our own backgrounds. I hope this makes any sense. As an example, I read an example in a book somewhere one time where it talked about the moon trining Neptune. And it's like, will a moon trining Neptune make you super intuitive or will it make you a drug addict? Well, it kind of depends on the state of your moon and the state of your Neptune. Like, are your emotions healed? Is your ability to connect with your intuitive side healed? If it is, then this is a very good flow and it will make you very intuitive. If it's not, then your unhealed moon emotions and your unhealed Neptune, am I psychic or am I insane? That's going to flow together and make you a crazy person and possibly turn you to drugs, right? So just having a trine does not in and of itself make, I don't think trines are just naturally lucky. I don't believe that. I think there is, that idea that floats around that all the trines are good. And I just don't believe that is true. I believe anything is good if the person's energy is good, and anything can be bad if that person's energy is bad, and it all just comes down to the energies that we are bringing to the table. So when it comes to this chart, so again, this was the chart for the second injunction that allows for the White House to continue working on censoring videos and other content, right? I don't know. What is the energy that we as a nation are bringing to this chart? What is the energy that the Supreme Court brought to this chart? What is the energy that the presidential administration brought to this chart? What's the energy that the social media platforms brought to this chart? That is all just stuff to consider. As I'm talking about it, I'm thinking of that moon, Venus, Jupiter trine and thinking, talk about a flow of money, because at its heart, that has got to be at least some part of the consideration that's taking place when different players are considering who gets to speak about different things on the internet, right? So anyway, okay, well, there you have it. I feel much better now that I've kind of like walked myself through the stars of this interesting situation. I'm interested to see how it plays out. Now that I've recorded it, I'm sitting here like, this seems like exactly the kind of video that I'm like creating a meta style video, as far, not like Facebook brand, but I mean, just like, if we look at it from above, I'm like creating a video about censorship in a way that might trigger censorship. I'm like, oh, this is so meta. So anyway, will I post it? Will I not? I don't know. If you see it, it's because I posted it. You should tell me how brave I am. I'm just kidding. You don't need to do that. But we'll see. Maybe this will just live on my computer. We'll see. Okay. Well, thanks for watching, guys. I hope that you have a good night. I hope this enlightened your brain a little bit on current events. Have a great night.